The following presentation is brought to you by Discovery Education, leading the world of digital and video learning. Discovery Education, connect to a world of learning.
The ancient civilizations of the Indus River Valley and the Indian subcontinent profoundly influenced the modern world. Scholars living in Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, cities established nearly 5,000 years ago, were responsible for many accomplishments in the arts, science, and mathematics. The number system we use today may have originated in this region, as well as the concepts of zero and infinity. For many years, historians credited ancient Egyptians and Greeks, as well as the Arabic people and the Moors in the Middle Ages, with providing the early building blocks for modern mathematical concepts. The Greeks' geometry and the Arabs' development of algebra, trigonometry, and the decimal system have been considered the earliest roots of modern math. But evidence has proved that the concepts of the decimal system, place value notation, and zero originated in India. The ancient civilizations of the Indus Valley were highly proficient in mathematics, and the creation of a decimal place value number system led to the development of other more complicated concepts in algebra, geometry, trigonometry, and number theory. Their earliest evidence of this mathematical proficiency was uncovered in the first half of the 20th century in the remains of the two urban centers at Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, which lie primarily in modern-day Pakistan. Dating back to approximately 2500 BC, the agricultural Harappan civilization developed the technology to fire mud bricks, which farmers used to build walls that controlled the annual river flooding. From a mathematical perspective, the most significant contribution of the Harappan culture was the development of a uniform system of weights and measures. These graduated cubical weights, each 10 times heavier than the one to its right, represent early evidence of a decimal system of numeration. This system would provide the template for the positional place value system that would form on the same soil many years later. Formal geometry, often regarded as a Greek invention, began during the Vedic period around 1500 BC. The Vedas are ancient Indian texts containing a record of human experience and knowledge, including mathematical sutras or sayings. These sutras contained simple rules and principles which could be easily memorized to solve long mathematical problems quickly. With the Vedas came the first evidence of mathematics and science put to practical service in religion, an early form of Hinduism. Vedic practice required daily ritual offerings. Elaborate altars were constructed that required knowledge of geometry, as well as methods for calculating length and area. One altar was built to resemble a falcon because Vedic belief held that the bird would carry the soul of the believer to heaven. As the cultures of India entered into an age of mathematics in the 3rd century BC, early development of a decimal place value system, similar to what the world relies on today, would begin. While many ancient cultures were highly proficient in math, those in the Indus Valley were the first to rely on 10 symbols to express any number. In fact, the 10 symbols that we use today have evolved from an Indian set known as Brahmi numerals. In a decimal place value system, the value of each place increases by a multiple of 10 from right to left. The digit in a given place is then multiplied by the appropriate power of 10. For example, the number 9,999 can be expressed as 9 times 10 cubed plus 9 times 10 squared plus 9 times 10 to the first power plus 9 times 10 to the 0 power. It can be written in expanded notation like this: 9 times 1,000 plus 9 times 100 plus 9 times 10 plus 9 times 1. For a positional place value system to function properly, a 0 is necessary. When we express the number 9,099, we recognize that each symbol, including the 0, is multiplied by a power of 10. We can express this number in expanded notation as 9 times 1,000 plus 0 times 100 plus 9 times 10 plus 9 times 1. Also, without the 0, there would be no way to distinguish in this case between 999 and 9,099. The concept of 0 eluded most ancient cultures because of its abstract nature. However, the ancient people living in the Indus Valley learned to operate freely with 0 and understood its importance in a place value system. Over the next 500 years, Indian mathematicians would learn the potential and versatility of such a system. Brahmagupta, one of India's greatest mathematicians, would make great strides in understanding and using properties for dealing with the positional number system, 0 and negative numbers. A skilled astronomer, Brahmagupta wrote 2 major scientific treatises, factoring mathematics heavily into both. He defined 0 as the result of subtracting another number from itself. He also stated that when 0 is added to or subtracted from a number, the number remains unchanged. Brahmagupta also understood the properties of negative numbers, another abstract concept that eluded most other ancient cultures. While these concepts may seem elementary, the notion of referring to 0 and quantities less than 0 as numbers with properties was groundbreaking. The first known civilization in South Asia appeared around 2500 BC on the Indian subcontinent. Like the earlier civilizations of Mesopotamia and Egypt, this one began in a river valley. In the area drained by the Indus River, hundreds of small farming villages arose. When they grew surplus food, they increased their populations and eventually formed the Indus Valley civilization. This civilization included about 1,400 cities and towns. Many were laid out in grid patterns similar to those in modern cities. They show evidence of city planning that far surpassed anything in ancient Egypt and Sumer. After about 1,000 years, this great civilization declined, though no one knows why. About that same time, a collection of nomadic herders called Aryans arrived in the Indus Valley. In addition to being herders, the Aryans were fierce warriors. By 700 BC, many Aryan kingdoms had formed across northern India. The Aryans had a collection of religious poems called Vedas, and the time the Aryans flourished in India is called the Vedic Age. Aryan society was built on castes, a system in which every person is born into a fixed social class. Over the centuries, the caste system became more complex. Eventually, hundreds of castes existed. Brahmanism was the main religion during the Vedic Age. According to tradition, only priests from the highest caste, the Brahmins, could perform rituals and sacrifices to the Vedic nature gods. So priests became extremely powerful. But by 800 BC, the ways of worship in India began to change. Gurus, or religious thinkers, began to challenge Brahmanism. The nature gods became less important, and people grew more concerned with questions raised by the gurus about how to lead a moral life. A new religion was born, Hinduism. Hinduism combined Aryan beliefs with local Indian religions. Although they still worshipped many gods, now Hindus also believed in one supreme god, Brahman. Many different forms of Hinduism evolved, but all Hindus shared the same basic beliefs, including reincarnation, the idea that after death the soul is reborn in another body, and the law of karma, in which actions in this life can affect a person's destiny in the next. The existing faiths in India became a part of Hinduism, which absorbed local gods and traditions. And because they placed little emphasis on complex rituals, Hindus could set up shrines anywhere, even in their own homes. Hinduism also encouraged creativity. Temples became centers of music, dance, and art, as well as prayer and worship. When Indian merchants traveled to distant lands in Southeast Asia, they took their religion with them. That's why the walls of many temples in other parts of Asia, like those in Angkor in Cambodia, are decorated with images of the Hindu gods. But Hinduism wasn't the only world religion to start in India. Buddhism began here too. It's based on the teachings of the spiritual leader Siddhartha Gautama. Siddhartha was an Indian prince born to a life of privilege around 563 BC, but he gave up his wealth and began a quest for spiritual enlightenment. After years of searching, self-denial, and meditation, it's said that Siddhartha achieved his goal. From then on, he was known as the Buddha, which means the enlightened one. For the next 45 years, the Buddha traveled through India and brought his teachings to many people. The Buddha accepted many Hindu ideas, including reincarnation and karma. But he dismissed many others, particularly the caste system. The Buddha taught that anyone could achieve enlightenment by following a series of principles he called the Eightfold Path. Buddhism grew very popular, and its followers spread it quickly through India. Some Indian rulers encouraged it. One of these rulers was Ashoka, a great military leader who ruled the powerful Mauryan Empire between 273 and 232 BC. After defeating the rival kingdom of Kalinga, Ashoka was shocked at the death and suffering his troops had caused. So he turned away from violence and embraced Buddhism. He built many monasteries and monuments, and sent missionaries to spread Buddha's teachings to the rest of the world. Ashoka's empire collapsed within 50 years of his death, breaking into many smaller kingdoms. But Buddhism survived and was eventually carried to other lands, and has become one of the modern world's most popular religions.
From the crowded markets of Delhi to the misty beauty of Taj Mahal, India assaults the senses. It is a nation teeming with nearly 1 billion people, engaged in the tasks of daily life. It is a land of religious diversity and religious conflict, of mysticism and mystery, a land where the spirit is at the center of life's events. For the majority in modern India, life does not exist without the Hindu influence. It is a religion defined by its lack of absolutes, even by its contradictions. To the Hindu, few religious ideas are considered irreconcilable, and all religions are considered true. It is said there are as many as 330 million gods in Hinduism. Gods for the days of the week, gods for towns and villages, gods of emotion, and gods of disease, gods of birth, and gods of death. The river Ganges begins as snowfall high in the Himalayas, the world's tallest mountain range that courses southern Asia. It flows 1,500 miles across India's northern plains, passing through Varanasi on its route to the Bay of Bengal, near Calcutta. At Varanasi, the Ganges swings into a wide crescent-shaped arc, where it's joined by several smaller tributaries. The city of Varanasi wakes before dawn, and its people hurry to awaken their souls. An ancient scripture urges, "Come on, get up. It is dawn now. How long this ignorant life, this dark life? Wake up." As the sun climbs into the morning sky, thousands of Hindu faithful descend the ancient steps each day, as they have for more than 3,000 years. The river Ganges, Hindus believe, is the liquid form of God, and a pilgrimage to this river is among the most sacred acts of Hinduism. They offer holy water to the sun, remembering their ancestors, washing away their sins. They face east and pray for spiritual knowledge. They drink the sacred water, revel in the river, and absorb the spirit of the Ganges. It is the spirit of the Hindu god Shiva, the spirit that will carry their soul to heaven. Devotion to the Hindu god Shiva and to the sacred river Ganges is a way of life in India's holy city of Varanasi. This is the final destination in the Hindu's journey toward enlightenment. Long series of stone steps called ghats line the shore along the western bank of the Ganges. There are more than 70 ghats in Varanasi, each with its own purpose and history. Since the birth of Hinduism around 1500 BC, the ghats have been rebuilt many times. From the water, the ghats appear like a huge amphitheater facing the dawn, providing a ceremonial approach to the river. Along the ghats, scores of Hindu priests sit under umbrellas, assisting pilgrims with bathing, prayers, and rituals. Of the 70,000 pilgrims that visit here daily, most find a meditative atmosphere for spiritual exercise and a place for the chores of everyday life. According to Hindu mythology, the Ganges flows from heaven in a torrent so fierce it could destroy the world. Instead, the Hindu god Shiva catches the water in his long matted hair and strains the river's fury until it becomes the broad, smooth Ganges.
That one will be better. Which one is?
The river is a source of life the Hindu call Ganga, a beautiful goddess. Ganga, they believe, is pure. Ganga is nurturing and kind to all creatures. Ganga is the never-ending flow of wisdom from the Supreme Being, the highest God, the universal power. On a bluff high above the Ganges west bank, Varanasi has grown to a city of more than 1 million people. Hindus believe that the glow from both the natural and spiritual light of the river make this the most beautiful city on earth.
The progress that Brahmagupta made in understanding place value, negative numbers, and the importance of zero would ultimately make its way to the Arab world between the 8th and 9th centuries. During this time, Islamic mathematicians translated many of the works of Indian scholars. The Arabs learned the decimal place value system, refined it, and ultimately transmitted it to Europe. The advantages of a positional decimal system are seen in the efficiency of arithmetical operations that historians believe the ancient Indus cultures were able to perform. A 20th century translation of Vedic sutras sheds light on the unique multiplication methods that the Vedas may have used. Vedic multiplication demonstrates an interesting use of the place value system. It is performed by cross addition or subtraction and merging. To multiply 81 and 95 using the Vedic system, begin by determining the base number, or the closest power of 10 to both numbers, which in this case is 100. Then create two columns. On the left, write the numbers being multiplied, 81 and 95. On the right, subtract each number from the base to get 19 and 5. These numbers are referred to as the deficiencies. The next step is cross subtraction, subtracting 5 from 81 or 19 from 95. In either case, the difference is 76. Now multiply the two deficiencies, 19 and 5, to get 95. The final step is to merge 76 and 95 to get 7,695, the product of 81 and 95. In addition to Vedic scholarship, other systems of thought had gained momentum in India, including Buddhism and Jainism. With them, developed the notion of studying mathematics for its own sake. The Jains, in particular, began to think of mathematics as an abstract discipline, dealing with extremely large numbers, as well as conceptualizing the notion of infinity. Their interest in large numbers developed from their philosophical consideration of time and space. For example, they contemplated a measure of time known as a Shirsha Prahalika, which amounted to 756 times 10 to the 11th power times 8,400,000 to the 28th power years. The Jain fascination with large numbers led them to classify numbers into three groups: innumerable, an integer that can be defined or calculated; innumerable, an integer that is known to exist but difficult to count or calculate, and infinite, a quantity that is immeasurable or boundless. The Jains also demonstrated great skill in calculating permutations and combinations. A permutation is defined as an ordering of a certain number of elements of a given set. For instance, the permutations of 1, 2, 3 are 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 1, 3, 2, and 2, 1, 3. A combination is defined as one or more elements selected from a set without regard to the order of selection. So the combinations of two number sets that can be selected from the set 1, 2, 3 are 1, 2, 1, 3, and 2, 3. Take a look at how to find permutations and combinations in our mathematical system. Suppose we want to find the number of ways to arrange the three letters in the word cat in different two-letter groups, where CA is different from AC, and no letters are repeated. This requires finding the number of permutations of two-letter groups that can be taken from a set of three letters. The answer to this problem is usually expressed as subscript 3 P subscript 2, which we will refer to as 3P2. Looking at the word cat, we can find these permutations easily, listing them as CA, CT, AC, AT, TC, and TA, determining that 6 total permutations of two-letter groups can be taken from a set of 3 letters. Suppose that we want to figure out how many permutations of 4 elements there are out of a set of 10. Some general concepts are needed to interpret the problem. Think of this as having 4 boxes to fill. You have 10 choices for the first box, then 9 for the second, 8 for the third, and 7 for the fourth, because you can't repeat a choice. So you have altogether 10 times 9 times 8 times 7 choices. So in finding the number of permutations of 4 elements out of a set of 10 objects, we must divide 10 factorial, or 10 times 9 times 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 by 10 minus 4 factorial, or 6 factorial. After factoring the equation, the answer is 5040. As the cultures of the Indus River Valley entered into a golden age of science and mathematics, the civilizations of ancient Greece and Rome began to decline as Europe descended into the Dark Ages. But mathematicians in the Indian and the Arab worlds would continue to refine and preserve their knowledge, paving the way for future thinkers like the young genius Ramanujan, who was able to develop startling mathematical theories dealing with elliptic functions, continued fractions, and infinite series. And this strong tradition of math in Indian culture has continued well into modern times. India today is a global leader in computer science, engineering, and data management. Mathematics owes an enormous debt to the contributions of the mathematicians of the Indus Valley.